social media land, in the post-paper, toilet paper apocalypse world. I am Dr. Brett Spradlin. We are at Divine Design Natural Health on the eve of destruction, and it's our wellness workshop night tonight. And I don't mean to make light of all the craziness that's going on. Certainly, there's our prayers and thoughts are with everybody out there, but you're in a good place. How many of you could think of worse places to be where you have not been working on your food, your immune system, where you have not been detoxing things from your body? You guys could be in a heck of a lot worse throes of destruction. And so anybody who has been here long enough knows that the people who are in this practice are healthier than the people who are outside of this practice. So I'll just leave that at that. Tonight is Lies Doctors Tell. And we have a rowdy group of absolute rebels here.
I'm a rebel.
Rebels, a rowdy group. And we are here to talk about Lies Doctors Tell. Now, a few things that we'll get to beforehand is we have a couple people spinning the wheel tonight, correct? Raise a hand. Yes, already. Oh, and Danny, yes, following up on Kathy's victory from before. WellWorks Rewards Club. I will warn you, you should be right now hopping on your cellular device and dialing up our Divine Design Natural Health Facebook page. You get stamps on your card, which is one of these right here. Boom. And you flip this over. And Janice, you already filled one of these up. Oh, you're almost there. And Kathy filled one up last week. She won an Everyday Oils kit. Pretty interesting little kit there. And Danny will be spending the night. How do you fill that thing up? You come to the WellWorks event, you get a stamp. You bring new guests with you to the event, you get a stamp. You check in on the Facebook page, you get a stamp. And then if you share the live stream, you get a stamp. So there's 4 ways. So you can be playing with your cellular device right now doing all this. There's 4 ways to stamp that little card. Folder, every new person should have a folder. You can take notes in the paper that is provided therein. Everybody's got one? Cool. And then this right here, the last little bit of housekeeping. And let's not forget we're on a 10-minute, everybody's looking in the back to make sure that Andrea's doing our commercial breaks. That's become the favorite part of our wellness workshops. Deadly Docs, Done Dirt Sleep. This is the next class we're going to be doing on March 30th. If that sounds like an AC/DC song, it is. Well, it's close. But we are not going to be putting this online. It is not going to be streamed or recorded. You need to be here. I'll read the little blurb here just to kind of spark your interest here. It sounds like a primetime murder mystery or a Hollywood thriller, but it's really happening. Very few know about it, and the media will not touch it. You haven't heard about it, and it could possibly affect your healthcare. I'm just going to go ahead and say it is affecting your healthcare. Come learn what you need to know. Warning, this event will not be live streamed or recorded. You need to be here. There's a reason behind that, and Facebook and Google and the powers that be don't like what we're talking about, so we're just not going to let them know that we're talking about it. And so other than that, any other housekeeping? I think we're good, yes? All right. Lies Doctors Tell. Now, the story behind this whole thing is, this is an interesting kind of never done an event like this before. And this is not to throw, I want to put this caveat out there. Lies Doctors Tell. I'm a doctor, okay? And even doctors like myself, even natural health doctors, there might be some things that they don't necessarily tell you the whole truth about, or they might not know. I'm not throwing people under the bus and saying, all these doctors over here are lying, or all these doctors over here are evil people. Are there bad doctors? Yes. Are there evil doctors? Yes. Are there bad, evil, sadistic, mad scientists? Yes. Are there young Frankensteins? Yes. Are there Gene Wilders? Yes. Are there bad people in every profession? Yes. But what you have to do is take everything with a grain of salt and put it up against 2 things. First of all, what does God say about it? First of all, medicine does not do that. Secondly, what does logic say about it? Okay? you should weigh those two things out. If you're hearing something from someone that just doesn't make a whole lot of sense logically to your mind, that's your gut check right there. And then if it goes against what the Bible says, or it goes against what reason and logic and just pureness and holiness go against, if it goes against that, then you've got a problem. So I say all that to say this. We're going to talk about a lot of things that have been brought up to my attention in the last, I've been doing this this is the 7th year in practice. I've been doing this in natural health and nutrition and all this stuff for 10 years now. So when it comes right down to it, there is a lot of stuff I hear from people on an almost daily basis that makes me just go, wow, who told you that? And you all know what I'm talking about. I'm not calling anybody a liar or a scam artist or anything like that, but I'm saying there's some bad information out there. Are some of these people lying to you? I hate to think that. I really do. It breaks my heart. But are some of them fed some bad information? You bet. So I want to say, I want to just pump a little, that first article, if we could get that going real quick. I want to just kind of show you what I mean by this. I'm not saying anything that you guys don't already know. Let me just accentuate that with some facts and some articles. Let me know when that's live. So this is a book. This is just a quick little Google search, okay? This is one book. There's a STAR report. We won't get into that right now. It's 2001, but this is very similar. The STAR report was put out by Barbara Starr, I think, or Paula Starr, I think, and it was a report that basically went through all of the industrial countries of the world and showed that America was dead last as far as birth rate, as far as birth mortality, as far as longevity, life expectancy, all this stuff. This has made big news back at 25 years ago. So this is a summary of a book from the National Center for Biotechnology Information, NCBI. This is just a book, one of many. I just did a quick little Google search, found this. The United States is among the wealthiest nations in the world, but is far from the healthiest. Although life expectancy and survival rates in the U.S. have improved dramatically over the past century, that's an arguable point there. Americans live shorter lives and experience more injuries and illnesses than people in other high-income countries. So I'm just going to go through this and show you guys. This is not my opinion. I'm just citing a few resources. A growing body of research is calling attention to this problem, with a 2011 report by the National Research Council confirming a large and rising international mortality gap among adults age 50 and older. I'll just skip. The biggest part I want to get down to is right here. So scroll down a little bit. The panel's analysis compared health outcomes in the United States with those of 16 comparable high-income or peer countries, such as Australia, Austria, Canada, Denmark, Finland, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, Norway, Portugal, Spain, Sweden, Switzerland, Netherlands, and the UK. Over this time period, we uncovered a strikingly consistent and pervasive pattern of higher mortality and inferior health in the United States, beginning when? At birth. For many years, Americans have had a shorter life expectancy than people in almost all the other peer countries, blah, blah, blah. For the past 3 decades, this difference in life expectancy has been growing, especially among women. If you've come to our classes all about kids, or if you've come to our classes all about women, birthing, beauty, biopsies, things like that, we talk about this. We talk about why. The health advantage is pervasive. It affects all age groups up to age 75 and is observed for multiple diseases, biological and behavioral risk factors, and injuries. So just more specifically, when compared with average peer countries, U.S. fares worse in 9 of these health domains: adverse birth outcomes, injuries and homicides, adolescent pregnancy and STDs, HIV and AIDS, drug-related mortality, obesity and diabetes, heart disease, all the bold things. We're not going to talk about all these. Chronic lung disease and disability. Those 9 health domains, the United States, the largest, most powerful health entity, or I should say governmental entity, the most lucrative and most, what's the word I'm looking for here? I guess the best economy, the most prosperous nation in the history of all recorded human life, civilization on Earth. This is still what we're talking about. We've got crappy healthcare system. Would anybody disagree with this? Best economy in the history of recorded human civilization, yet the kids are dying. The old people are dying. The middle-aged people are dying. We got more heart disease, more lung disease, more disability, more drug-related mortality, more accidents, and more obesity going through the roof. Does that make sense? It's there. It's real. Everybody knows it's real. You turn on the news. You go outside. Go to Walmart. People are defective. I don't mean that in a I don't mean that in a bad way. But the people are defective. People of this nation. I didn't mean that to be a didn't mean that to be a comedy point, but it's the truth. The people are defective. And if you look in the shopping carts, you see why. Anyone who's been a patient here for long enough knows. You become a shopping cart voyeur. You start looking at people's shopping carts, and then you start realizing why they're pulling an oxygen tank. So all of these things here, it's kind of shocking, but at the same time, nobody's shocked. Scroll down. First half of the above list occurs disproportionately among young Americans. I'm going to skip a bunch of this stuff. The real meat and potatoes I want to get to here. Scroll. Right here. In terms of individual behaviors, wait. Where is it? Right here. U.S. health system is highly fragmented with limited, so they're saying possible explanations for this discrepancy in the fact that you live in the greatest country in recorded history, yet the crappiest healthcare. Here's some of the possible explanations. U.S. health system is highly fragmented with limited public health and primary care resources and a large uninsured population. That's it. There's too many people uninsured. That must be it. Compared with people in other countries, Americans are more likely to find care inaccessible or unaffordable and to report lapses in the quality and safety of care outside of hospitals. Do you know anyone who is unable to dial 911? Me either. In terms of individual, the thing is, Americans are more likely to find inaccessible or unaffordable. People use 911 as medical transport now. I mean, it's not inaccessible. Healthcare is everywhere. But continue. Okay, that could be a possible explanation. In terms of individual behaviors, Americans are less likely to smoke and may drink less heavily than their counterparts in peer countries, but they consume the most calories per capita, abuse more prescription and illicit drugs, are less likely to fasten seatbelts, have more traffic accidents involving alcohol, own more firearms. Are you seeing this? That's exactly where I was going to ask for an oh brother. But you see the possible explanations. I mean, of everything. This is one book. This is one group of PhD scientists that wrote this thing. And this is the groupthink. This is what you're being led to believe, right? It's because you eat too many calories, there's too much alcohol, well, which I agree with, and then you have too many firearms. So of course that's oh brother. Say it again. Say it louder. Oh, I love that. Ooh, it just reverberates through the whole. That's nice. U.S. adolescents seem to become more sexually active at an early age, have more sexual partners, and are less likely to practice safe sex than adolescents in other high-income countries. Obviously, that's... Oh, brother. So adverse social and economic conditions, blah, blah, blah. U.S. children are more likely than children in peer countries to grow up in poverty. Although all of these differences are compelling and important, no single factor fully explains the U.S. health disadvantages. Problems with the healthcare system might exacerbate illnesses and heighten mortality from certain diseases, but cannot account for transportation-related accidents or violence. Individual behaviors contribute to the overall disadvantages, but studies show that even Americans' healthy behaviors, for example, those who are not obese or don't smoke, appear to have higher disease rates. Okay, so scroll on down. I think that's the last little, there might have been a little chunk here at the very end. You know, blah, 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 more and more, opinion, blah, blah, blah. Evidence regarding the U.S. health disadvantage is considerable and growing, but many fundamental questions remain about its underlying causes, the complex causal pathways that link health determinants with health outcomes, and how these pathways differ for specific subgroups of people over time and place. In other words, we don't know. New data and new analyses are needed to answer these questions. In other words, we don't know. Next. But we're going to go through what's happening to American healthcare. We're going to go through it. And this is Lies Doctors Tell. We're going to show you. Another little thing that I found, just a quick little Google search. Medical mystery. Something happened to the U.S. health spending after 1980. Now, many of you have heard me explain how my mentors and many people who I've studied under said there was something that happened in the mid-'80s. Chiropractic used to perform miracles. You'd have a deaf person come in, you'd adjust them, they'd hear. You'd have a blind person come in, you'd adjust them, they'd see. Somebody would come in with pneumonia, you'd adjust them, they'd cough it out and walk out of your office. In the 20s, the 30s. You know, chiropractic survived the 1918, what you're hearing about right now, the Spanish flu. Actually, that was a big boon to chiropractic in 1918 because chiropractic had just been codified in 1895. So by the time 1917, 1918 Spanish flu rolled around, this was the first time in human history where World War I, you had the entire globe bathed in radar and sonar to watch ships and airplanes go all across the world for World War I. 100 years ago, right? Activated all of these millimeter waves, activated all these viruses. What's happening 100 years later right now? What's being rolled out on the U.S. population right now? 5G. Is that affecting viruses? Just ask the people in Wuhan, where that was the first blanketed city in all of China. That's all I'm going to say about that. But in 1980, all of my mentors would say, something happened in the 80s, something happened in the 80s. We don't know what it was. Something happened in the 80s. You used to have all these miracles. Well, just like chiropractic back at the turn of the century, all these people who got adjusted survived the Spanish flu. Why? Well, it increases your immune system. It has nothing to do with neck pain, back pain, headache. We'll get into that. But it had everything to do with increasing your immune system. What else happened in the 1980s? If you've been to some of my classes where I talk about the surge in serial killers in the United States in 1980s. Does anybody remember me ever talking about that? How they could not figure out why there were so many serial killers in the United States. 300 versus the next greatest in the world was Great Britain. There were 30. So we had 10 times the number of serial killers in the short history of the... Great Britain's been around 2,000 years. America's been around 200 years. We 10 times them with our number of serial killers. Nobody knew why. But they knew that the number of serial killers went through the roof in the mid-'80s. What else happened in the mid-1980s? What did I piece together when my mentors were all saying the same thing about, man, something happened in the 80s, something happened in the 80s. What happened in the 80s? Huh? Vaccine schedule increased. What else? GMOs blew through the roof in the late 1980s. What else?
Microwave ovens.
Microwave ovens, huge. What else?
Fake sugars.
Artificial sweeteners introduced into the U.S. food supply. What else?
Is there a biggie that we're not getting?
There's a biggie.
Give us the initials.
Prescription advertising.
Prescription advertising on television for the first time ever. All of that coming together in the 1980s, late 1980s. What is autism, the gateway year of autism? What is the gateway year by every researcher on earth? Gateway year of autism was what year? 1989. You don't ever see autistic kids past 40 years old. Does anybody know any autistic people past 40? No. This is why. So the spending began soaring beyond that of other advanced nations, but without the same benefits in life expectancy. If we just scroll down, there's a couple things I want to hit here. I don't want to spend much time, but this is May 2018. Keep that in mind. The United States devotes a lot more of its economic resources to healthcare than any other nation, and yet its healthcare outcomes aren't better for it. This is an American dude writing for the New York Times. Everybody knows we suck. Say it. America was in the realm of other countries in per capita health spending through about 1980, then it diverged. Scroll down. There's just one or two other paragraphs I want to hit. Oh, this is kind of fun. In most countries, more health spending coincided with much longer lives, but the U.S. diverged from peer nations around 1980. Each dot below represents 1 year in a country between 1970 and 2003. So here's all these other countries, here's life expectancy, and then here's the U.S. just tanking. How many of you have heard liars never figure, but figures never lie? Figures never lie. Liars may figure, but figures never lie. So scroll down. Health spending and life expectancy are not necessarily closely related, so it's helpful to consider them separately. Medical care is one of the less important detriments of life expectancy. Really? Is that right? Scroll down. There's one little spot here. Keep going. I just want to show you the audacity of this. Although American healthcare markets are highly consolidated, which contributes to higher prices, there are also enough players to impose administrative drag. Rising administrative costs, like billing and price negotiations among many insurers, may also explain part of the problem. So see, here's a problem, and then we're going to talk about, well, all these things that might be part of the problem. Scroll down. Why did it start around 1980? High inflation of the 70s contributed to growth in healthcare spending, which other countries had more systems in place to control. Really? Thus, across the world, one sees constraints on payment, technology, 70s and 80s. Scroll down. Just a bunch of techno speak. There's one other chunk here. So keep going. Oh yeah, coronary artery bypass surgery took off in the 70s. That was a big thing. Another study in JAMA, Journal of the American Medical Association, found that even accounting for motor vehicle traffic crashes, firearm-related injuries, and drug poisonings, the United States has higher mortality rates than comparably wealthy countries. I wanted to hit that, of course. The lack of universal health coverage, less safety net support from low-income populations could have something to do with it. See, it's just speculation. It even says speculated. Scroll down, scroll down. Large reductions in child mortality associated with expansions. It's just nonsense. Social, where is it? Keep going. This is a long article, sorry. Keep going. I guess toward the end here. Nope, that was the end. So basically here it says, nevertheless, we could have had a lot more competition in healthcare. Government programs should often pay less than they do. If savings could be reaped from these approaches and others and reinvested in improving the welfare of lower income Americans, we might close both the spending and longevity gaps. So they're saying if you could just, dial in a few numbers here and there, the gaps between the how much it costs and how much it costs to live, how much it costs to have health care, and then how long you live from that health care would even out. I say that's garbage. You know why? Because doctors tell lies. So we're going to talk about this real quick, and I want to show you, before, I was going to show this at the end. Let's show this video at the beginning, because you need to know what this is, especially with the times that we live in the toilet paper apocalypse. There's a lot of fear, and there's a lot of things that are going to be coming at you from very, very different three-letter agencies. If you search for something on Google, you're going to have a little thing pop up and tell you that this three-letter agency is the know-all, end-all, be-all, and that's all I'm going to say about that. However, what you need to know is this is you'll see a guy in here. This is something that came out in 2016, I want to say, from a three-letter agency. There were people who worked for a three-letter agency who were scientists who finally came out and said, we cooked the books on certain injectants. I'm not going to say the V word. They said we cooked the books, and we finally have a conscience about it, and here is our story. And so Del Bigtree is a producer of the show on TV called The Doctors. Do you know? Everybody knows that show. Raise your hand if you do not know that show. There's a show on TV called The Doctors, there's a plastic surgeon, a pediatrician, an OBGYN, and an emergency room doctor. And they all discuss upcoming things in healthcare, and they discuss pertinent things at hand. Well, Del Bigtree was the producer on that show for years. He won an Emmy on that show. There was one particular topic that you're going to see here that kept coming up on the show, and he kept seeing these patterns, and he kept saying, this isn't right, there's something fishy about this. Once he figured this out, once he saw this story break, he went to his producer, he went to the people behind the show, and they said, no, we're not covering this. So he did it on his own. They filmed a documentary, which is what this is. This is the trailer to the documentary, and it was wildly popular, but a lot of people shut it down in theaters. A lot of theaters kind of got wind of it and shut it down. That was 2016. 2019, November, December of last year, the second part of this came out. It was unabashedly vanquished from the theaters. Once the theaters found out what it was, they censored it. They said, and the first one was supposed to be at a Tribeca Film Fest. You might have heard of this, Robert De Niro's film festival. This was on the docket. It was pulled the day before. Nobody knew why. Nobody had any idea why. The powers that be pulled this from the docket of a major, major, major film festival. That was part one of this. It's called Vaxxed. Part two, Vaxxed Part 2, was supposed to be shown in December. Well, it got pulled from all the theaters. AMC theaters pulled the plug on it because they knew what it was all about, and they said, we're not gonna, propagate this false information. Okay, basically, this is the documentary trailer to that coming out from the producer of The Doctors, and it's all about one of the three-letter agencies and scientists who worked for that three-letter agency finally coming to the truth and whistleblowing on what needed to be told. So roll this, and then we'll talk about other lies doctors tell. Technical difficulties. Coming down on us. Did I do an okay job of explaining that? Everybody knows what I'm talking about. I'm trying to be cryptic because there are certain things that you can't mention anymore without getting shut down or demonetized, or we've already had Facebook knock us for talking about truth. Let us know when you're ready. In, I think, October, November, and then they rolled out a second showing, and that's the one that got shut down because it spread so fast. This, they showed it like on the East Coast, and there were so many people leading protests, but good protests, like doctors and people standing up saying, because New Jersey was voting for this not long after that. And so New Jersey, the vote got, they were able to maintain their religious freedom and stuff like that. But there were, on the East Coast, they did have a showing, and it was, widely received. And a lot of people were talking about it. And then they rolled out like a second showing of it, and that's what got shut down. So is it being shown right now? No. There's no plans as of yet, right? There's no plans as of yet. Yeah, because we bought 50 tickets when it rolled out. We bought 50 tickets for patients to take people. The first one that came, we took about 20 people when it first rolled out, because this is a very, very, very important topic. And it ties right into the toilet paper apocalypse, and it ties right into what you're being told about the viruses. It ties right into the 5G. It ties right into everything. This is part of all of it. It's a very big thing. All set? All right, let's rock.
My phone rings, and it's Dr. William Thompson.
You and I don't know each other very well. You have a son with autism, and I have great shame now.
There's a whistleblower from the CDC who's going to come out and say that the CDC had committed fraud on the MMR study and that they knew that vaccines were actually causing autism.
My oldest son, Ian, was walking and running. After the vaccine, he was no longer able to do that.
So I called the clinic and I said, I think my child's had adverse reaction to those shots.
And then came the head bang, the constant banging against anything that he could find.
Right now, I'm sitting in a very pretty position in terms of providing you a lot of information.
The first thing that Thompson did was to plot a graph. Now, if there's no link between early MMR and autism, those two lines should track together. Now, they do track together until they get to 15 months. Then they separate, and they continue to separate thereafter. And they sliced and diced the data in an effort to get rid of that effect.
The relative risk of receiving an autism diagnosis was astronomical.
Wow. The CDC had known all along there was this MMR autism risk.
In CDC's judgment, the best public policy is to continue vaccination unchanged.
You who run our health agencies in this country, you have an obligation to make sure that these studies are complete, thorough, so that we have all the facts.
Oh my God, I cannot believe we did what we did. But we did.
Omission of crucial data, destruction of documents, misleading the Congress, grievous harm to innocent children.
Everything I've been telling my patients for the last 10 years has been based on a lie and a cover-up.
Parents should be able to count on federal agencies to tell them the truth.
In 1978, the prevalence of autism was about 1 in 15,000 children.
If we assume that things are going to continue as they have, we can predict that by 2032, 80% of the boys born will end up on the autism spectrum. Half the children, 80% of the boys.
It's a vast number of children who are being diagnosed with autism every day.
This is going to be a complete catastrophe if we just let it happen.
We're not hearing a word about that, but you're hearing about other stuff, dealing with the toilet paper apocalypse. Any questions on any of that? That's the real deal. We've got a commercial break coming up. Everybody give Andrea a round of applause.
Thanks for being the first, Annie. I appreciate that. So this is a testimonial from a parent about their child who is also a patient. It says, my 3.5-year-old had never had a solid bowel movement before we came to Divine Design, even after seeing multiple pediatricians and pediatric GI specialists. And she says, my 2-year-old also had nearly perpetual diarrhea, and both children were completely on solid foods. In other words, they weren't nursing or breastfeeding or anything like that anymore. They had every reason to be having normal bowel movements. How are you now? After beginning to follow Dr. Spradlin's recommendations, both girls are having solid bowel movements, which is something you'd think that you'd never celebrate. Praise the Lord for such a simple solution found in nutrition and natural health care. You know, I don't know if anybody else has ever celebrated poo, but yeah.
Go poo. See? Go poop. Oh, brother. All right. So to get right into the sunshine of things, I wanted to show that, and we'll get into some lies doctors tell, because you need to know some of these things. I don't know how far we're going to get through this. I've got 60 items. Okay. I've polled a lot of my patients here are medical professionals, from physical therapy assistants to RNs to nurse practitioners to pharmacists to pharm techs to respiratory therapists, you name it. So it's interesting when you say, hey, you work in the health fields too. What are some lies or what are some misconceptions that you've heard? It's mind-blowing. So we're not going to get through all of these, and what we're probably going to do is break this up into probably part 2, part 3, part 4, who knows, part 11 or 12, who knows. But I want to get through some of this. It'll be an amusing little take on some things that you've all heard, and it will tie in with some of the things you're hearing right now, so that you guys, if you get nothing else out of this, my main goal for you right now to get out of this is to really realize that just because someone wears a white coat, that does not mean they are God. Even if they're wearing black scrubs, it doesn't mean they're God. Does that make sense? If they're talking smack out of one end of their mouth that doesn't line up with the stuff that they're saying out of the other end of their mouth, just disregard it. That's why half the time you get a second opinion and it doesn't match up with the first opinion. Okay, so I want to tear into some of this. Let's just get into some of the things that I hear from doctors, or that I hear from patients. I've heard this now for years and years and years. This is one of the biggest ones. Your organ isn't working. Does that make sense to anyone in this room? How can you be living? Seriously, some of this just defies logic. Think about it. You're living, but and here's where I hear it most of the time. What organ isn't working most of the time? Say it louder. Thyroid or gallbladder. How can that be possible? That you are a living, breathing organism with a dead organ sitting in it. I mean, it befuddles. It's befuddling. That's all I'm going to say about it. I hear it all the time. Doctor said my gallbladder's working at 5%. Well, why didn't he say it's only 5%? Well, why? Did he say why? No. But they can measure the percentage that it's working, but they can't tell you why. It's befuddling. Next. It's a safe drug as long as you're past the first trimester. Who was it that told me this one? Andrea, you told me this one. Right. This was new to me. I did not know this. It's a safe drug as long as what? You're past the first trimester. Why would that be? Anybody know? When you're past the first trimester, what they teach you in medical school, at least from what I've known, is that it's not for real a baby until the first trimester, until all the organs and all the bones and all the muscle, everything's formed. So it's a safe drug as long as you're past the first trimester. Of course, once you have all the necessary parts there, now the baby can withstand poison. You ever hear of thalidomide? You guys remember that? Yeah. Next. Chiropractic is only good for neck pain, back pain, and headaches. Y'all know that, right? I'm a trained chiropractor, so the numbers of times that I hear this, it's mind-blowing. But with all of the commercial breaks, how many of you know go poo? Did that have anything to do with neck pain, back pain, or headache? I'm sure it might have caused a headache or two fixing it. But if chiropractic is only good for neck pain, back pain, and headache, what about stimulating your immune system? What about that 1918 flu thing we talked about, the Spanish flu? What about people's eyes that get better? What about people's ears that get better? What about people's tinnitus that goes away? What about their digestive function that improves? What about their respiratory function that improves? What about their bones that heal faster? What about anti-aging? The list goes on and on. Dial into some of the other classes that we have on Facebook and YouTube to see a lot more about chiropractic. And next, you'll eventually have to learn to live with the pain. How many of you have heard this one? Oh my, hands go up. You'll eventually have to learn to live with the pain. Yeah, and I told everybody about the thing on Netflix a little while ago. It's called The Pharmacist. It's a 4-episode thing about the opioid epidemic, and that's how the opioid epidemic got started, basically. You'll just have to learn to live with the pain. Not figure out where the pain is coming from. What we do. See, I clean up medical medical mishaps all the time. A big one is, well, you've just got this pain. Where's the pain coming from? What's causing the pain? Let's figure out what's causing the pain. Pain's not your enemy. Pain is your body doing its job. Pain is your body saying, I've got something wrong. Help me fix it. Okay? Pain is your friend. Next, and we could go into that. I could teach a whole class on pain. How many of you have heard this? That's completely normal for your age. What does that do? That sets a precedent for complacency, is all that does. What they should say is, that's completely common. It's not normal. All this nonsense, you peeing every time you laugh, all this craziness about having a headache. Watch out. Watch out. Well, I set her up for that one, didn't I? Peeing every time. If my pews are wet, woman, you're staying afterwards. That's completely normal for your age. All the stuff they say, it's not normal. It's not genetic. It's not just you getting older. That's a doctor copping out for not wanting to figure out where all the stuff's coming from. That's what it is. Or they don't know, or they literally do think it's old age, or they do think it's normal, maybe, because that's what they've been told. But if people can get better by doing what we're doing, then they're wrong. Okay, so that's completely normal for your age. Think about all this stuff. You're never going to go to a family reunion or a nursing home or visit your in-laws again and hear all this nonsense and think of it the same way, because it's crap. They've been told a line of crap. You've been told a line of crap, and we've all bought it. Next. Oh, love this one. Stay away from salt. Salt is a required mineral in the human body. So stay away from that darn salt. What did staying away from salt do? Put a bunch of people on dialysis. Next. You need 8 glasses of water per day. How many of you have heard that? Define glasses. Is that cups? Is that pints? Is that 4 ounces? Is it 6 ounces? Is it 8 ounces? A 380-pound NFL linebacker needs the same amount as a 100-pound ballerina? We are even screwed down to the level of salt and water that we're educated on from a community that's supposed to keep us alive. The same community that's supposed to keep us alive, a while back, a famous doctor, Joel Wallach, you might have heard of, I love his stuff. He was a veterinarian. Joel Wallach was a veterinarian. And he had figured out, he'd done so many autopsies and had studied animals for so long. He'd done so many tens of thousands of autopsies on animals. And he'd figured out that the animals, there's no arthritis in animals. There's no headaches in animals. There's no infertility in animals. There's no heart attacks in animals. He said, we figured out how to fix all this stuff in animals because the herds of animals and the flocks of chickens and the herds of cattle are all money. So if you lose a turkey population, or if you lose a whole entire chicken farm, there's hundreds of thousands of potential dollars there. So farmers ain't going to have it. So vets figured out it's all nutrition. They cured all of this nonsense in animals decades ago. You don't have animals with multiple sclerosis. You don't have animals with scleroderma. You don't have animals with ALS. They're not dumping ice water on their heads. You do not have animals with all these problems that Americans do. What he did was he collected obituaries of doctors. He's a vet, and he figured all this stuff out. A veterinarian. I don't mean vet like a veteran. I mean a vet as in a veterinarian. So he collected obituaries of doctors and lawyers, and he found out the U.S. life expectancy average is 75.5 years, and the average medical doctor life expectancy was 58. What does that tell you? We're taking our advice from people who don't even stay alive as long as we do. 75.5 years old average American, 58 years old average medical doctor in the United States. Primitive societies, however, you got people living in the hundreds, the 120s, and even recorded up into the 140s. Primitive societies without all this nonsense, without all the imaging, the drugs, the vaccines, the CAT scans, the MRIs, the blood labs, all that nonsense. So 8 glasses of water per day, here's the deal. If your doctors knew that you were eating vegetables, well, if you were eating enough vegetables, would you need to, what's the 8 glasses of water a day for? Is that for healthy people or sick people? Well, what if they're eating vegetables? Are you still going to need 8 glasses of water? No, because vegetables are made primarily of what? Water. So that goes away the minute you change your diet. That changes. That number right there changes. But how many times do we say to people, oh, you need your 8 glasses, you need your 8 glasses? Define glass and define 8. Next. Ties right into this one. You have to stop eating vegetables. How many times have you heard this one? Never heard this one? Nobody taking a blood thinner has ever been told to stop green leafy vegetables? Coumadin, heparin, warfarin. So here, take this poison, but stop eating this plant. I mean, think about this. You cannot make this stuff up. Next. This I started hearing a couple years ago. It must be something new in medical schools. I'm not quite sure. To do bowel resections. Your intestines are too long. Has anyone ever heard this? I started hearing it other docs. I started hearing it from other doctors too. Hey man, did you hear this? Have you ever had a patient say this? No, I never have. 2 days later, somebody comes in. They told me my intestines are too long. Hey, guess what? Let me rephrase that. Yes, I have heard it now. Your intestines are too long, so now we resect your bowels. Only problem is 70 to 90% of your immune system is contained in your bowels. So if you get something that changes your digestion, it's going to change your immune system, and it's therefore going to change everything about your body. Okay. Next, gosh, we are just chugging along, but man, there's so many of them. There's so many of them. We need to constantly monitor your blood sugar, but sugar doesn't have any impact on your health. Say that again. We need to monitor your blood sugar. Who are we talking about? Right. But then, does sugar have any impact on your health? Do they train you on what type of sugar is bad for you? Is all blood sugar bad for you?
And they used to call it sugar diabetes.
Sugar diabetes.
But they cut that out.
Yeah. Yeah, and it used to be called, it's diabetes mellitus because it's the old way that they used to diagnose this would be dipping their finger in the pee and tasting it. I'm not kidding. So mellitus means sweet. Diabetes mellitus or mellitus. Yeah. Yeah, you learn that in school and you're like, I'm glad I'm a doc now. Right. Who tasted all the pee? Who got that job? So we need to constantly monitor your blood sugar, but we're not going to tell you anything about the blood sugar to stay away from. We're not going to tell you that, yeah, you can just, well, another one of the lies that may be coming up soon, maybe 2 other classes down the road, is you've all heard this one. Oh, your diet looks fine to me. You can just eat it whatever you want. Right? That goes along with that one. Make sense? You know people. Everyone in this room knows somebody who needs to be in a chair here that has heard this nonsense coming to them, which has then cursed them into metformin and dialysis and early death and going to a nursing home 30 years ahead of time. Every one of you in this room knows somebody. Or amputations. Or amputations, right. Right. How sad is that? That we live in the most technologically advanced, most prosperous nation in recorded civilization. Yet we have so many people so sick that those articles I just showed you took 2 seconds to find. One was a book written about how screwed up America is, and one was a New York Times article written 2 years ago talking about how screwed up the healthcare system is. Everybody's answer? More insurance. Everybody's answer? More drugs. Is that going to fix it? No. Makes it worse. So, this one right here, that one's led to how many deaths? Who knows? Your intestines are too long. You go in, you get a perforated bowel. I still can't believe. We still make jokes about it. I'll talk to other docs. Yo, have you heard this yet? Have you heard this yet? Boom, boom, boom. Hey, I heard that. What did you hear this week? What's the craziest thing you heard? Oh, yeah, I had a patient come in and said blah, 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 blah. Oh, that's a good one. I've never heard that. It's unbelievable. It's just a clown show. It's a complete and utter clown show sometimes. You just look at this and go, who told you this? My doctor. Your real doctor? Or some dude on TV. Who told you this? What happened? Who was this? I don't want to call these people out, but it just doesn't make sense. I mean, you have to call out crap. You have to sometimes. It's unbelievable. Okay, next. Oh, yeah. Oh, this is a good one. People are healthier now compared to the past. Do you think we're smarter now or stupider now? Oh, let's think about how they wrote back in the 1800s. Have you ever seen the penmanship of letters by Civil War guys writing to their honeys? You ever seen Shakespeare writing back 1600s? How they wrote back then? How they wrote their letters? The kind of furniture they carved? Type of stuff they built? Are we smarter now or dumber? I hate to say it, but we got a lot of fancy gadgets, but we ain't getting smarter. So people are healthier now compared to the past? I don't know about that. Back then, they were eating good food. They were outside. They were chasing down deer. They were hunting, you know. People are healthier now than in the past. Have you gone to Walmart? Did we already cover that? Oh, brother. People are defective, right? People are defective. People are falling apart. People are healthier now compared to the past. I call BS on that one. I ain't believing it. Nope. And can people still write cursive? Can people even still read? Can people make critical decisions with fluoridated water, with being drugged out of their minds, with watching a one-eyed idiot monster box in the corner of their house telling them what to believe and what's true? I mean, we are being dumbed down and we are being brainwashed. And so people are healthier now compared to the past. That's part of the brainwashing. Would you agree? Would you agree? It's ridiculous. Next. How many times have you heard this? Stay out of the sun. It's going to give you cancer. We invented sunscreen, and skin cancer went through the roof, 60%. Dermatology offices flooded because what's in the sunscreen? Cancer-causing agents. keep people out of the sun, keep them afraid of the sun, the vitamin D that's in the sun, and people will get sick. Their immune system goes south. And look at what we did. We brought people out of the sun, stuck them in air conditioning and inside. They haven't sweated since the 70s, and they've gotten sicker. Did they get healthier or did they get sicker since we took them out of the sun? Sicker. Stay out of the sun. It will give you cancer. Don't forget that. These are things you've heard. How many times have you heard that one? Drive past a dermatologist's office and tell me that yeah, just drive past a dermatologist's office. Next. We'll do a couple more here, and then we're done in 5 minutes. You'll die without this medication. How many of you have heard that? Or have heard someone in the immediate vicinity being told this? Anyone in this room that has not heard that? You'll die without this medication. How many life-saving medications are there out there? That's a good point. How many life-saving medications are there? Good question. Well, if you're nitroglycerin maybe under your tongue, perhaps, maybe epinephrine. I've had a couple bee stings that almost killed me, but that was because I was eating a lot of crap. My body was already inflamed. Now I get stung by a bee, it doesn't touch me. But back then, when I didn't know anything, I had anaphylactic reaction to a bee sting, almost killed me. Now I get stung, no problem. Interesting, huh? So there are instances where, and that was the little caveat at the beginning of this class. I'm not, going against, emergency medicine. But what I am saying is 99% of the medicine that's out there is not emergency medicine. You ready? It is chronic, long-term disease management and has nothing to do with saving someone's life. It's less than 1% of all the medicine that's out there. And on that uplifting note, everybody give a round of applause.
All right, this one is a little bit lengthier than the first one, but it's a really good one. Yes. So this patient says, roughly 2 years prior to starting at Divine Design, I was getting sick every time I ate, so vomiting, diarrhea up to 8 times a day. I will go on from here to have multiple tests and scopes done for doctors to diagnose me with IBS and food allergies. From the gastro doctor alone, I had probably 6 prescription drugs for IBS and acid reflux. I've never liked taking prescriptions as it is, so I just refused to take them. At this point, I knew I had to do something, so I changed my own diet completely, and this happened for about a year and a half. I noticed my diet changed, making a huge difference. Upon finding Divine Design, I was surprised in a good way that care centered around food intake. My eating habits were already pretty good, but Divine Design took it to the next level. This is my 8th visit, and I can tell my nutrition is making all the difference. I have not been sick after eating whole foods once since beginning here, and I have not paid to see any of my normal doctors since beginning care either. With supplements and nutrition, I have been able to feel better, stop getting sick, stop seeing doctors that aren't healing me, and avoid taking prescription drugs.
Wow.
Yep.
Read that all one more time.
And I can.
Yeah. But remember, chiropractic's only neck pain, back pain, headache. Remember that. A couple more. I think you guys deserve another couple of laughs. Has this been fun? Yeah. It's kind of revealing, isn't it? It's like, wow, this is so shady. This is so funky. We've been told so much of this. My parents, my grandparents, my aunts, my uncles. It's just ridiculous. I mean, y'all in this room. I know some of you have heard this. A few more. So you'll die without this medication. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think we covered that. This is one. Breast implant illness. If y'all don't know anything about this, breast implant illness, major problem. Because, well, and here's what they told people. And this is pretty sick. I mean, this is some of the imagery that they come up with, that doctors will come up with to tell people. It's crazy. Implants are safe. You'll never need to replace them. 50 years after you're dead, they'll dig up your body and they'll still be there. How they get that in your mind is a psychological phenomenon. And they'll say the same thing, whether it's bone on bone, or whether it's this and that, or whether it's If the bullet had been over 2 more millimeters, he wouldn't be here. It's always this almost exaggeration of things that are almost just such a visual conundrum in your mind that you come to this realization of, wow, you're picturing people digging up your body and there's your boobs. 50 years later, it's like, how do they do this? This is psychological, just mind-numbingness, okay? But breast implant illness, there are Facebook groups. There's a massive amount of things. We've probably had about, here, I get to answer that. Hello? Death Star, this is Darth Vader. How can I help you? You picture Darth Vader answering the phone? But if you think about what they're doing, breast implant illness, it's a massive, massive, massive thing now where women are having all these problems from breast implants. Why would they have all these problems from breast implants? Well, the big thing, they said it was just silicone, but there's over 40 chemicals in the stuff, right? What's the other stuff that we're being told right now? Implants, certain procedures, CPAP, whether it's the tube you're breathing plastic through that you're never hearing anything about. What are other things that people are being sickened by that we're told it was just normal? 40 years ago, look at what, 30, 40 years ago, all these people were getting breast implants. Now they've got autoimmune conditions and all these problems that just aren't being traced to any of these things. I don't even want to, it's just horrible. But the imagery sometimes that you just have to stop and ask, why would they say it like that? And I wrote that down. That's a quote. I wrote that down. I said, is that the way they said it? Oh yeah, she remembered it well. She remembered it to verbatim from years ago. And I thought, that's just disheartening. That's disheartening. Another couple and we're out of here. Oh, I love this one. I have a special place in my stomach for this one. If you think of the lunacy behind this, it's so simple. It's so simple. If you're stressed, there's only 2 ways your body can go. Brake pedal, gas pedal. Just like a car. Think about it. If your body is on the gas pedal and you're revved up and you're just stressed out of your mind, that's called the sympathetic nervous system. We'll call it the fight or flight nervous system. If your body is chilled, laying at home, thinking about getting your breast implants, and you're just chill, and you're just, or wait, thinking about staying out of the sun. We'll think about not going to the beach. You're at home just thinking about not going to the beach. So you're just resting and digesting. You got your brake pedal on. Your fight or flight is gas pedal. Your rest and digest is brake pedal. Okay? The only way you make stomach acid is when you're in rest and digest mode. Because when you're in stress mode, you are not thinking about digesting food. Here's the kicker. In this world that we live in, with the toilet paper apocalypse, CNN, economic quantitative non-easing, and all this other nonsense, do you think people are rest and digest way too much, or do you think people are fight and flight way too much? So when people are in this modern day world, fight or flight, it is physiologically impossible to make too much stomach acid. But you're told, well, you're just stressed out, you're making too much stomach acid. You're stressed out, you're making too much stomach acid. So they put you on a proton pump inhibitor that decreases your digestion, and you don't digest proteins. You have too much stomach acid. It's impossible. When you're stressed out, it's impossible. You cannot have too much stomach acid. Does that make logical sense? You can't put the gas pedal and the brake pedal at the same time and go anywhere, right? You're either rest and digest or you're fight and flight. Fight or flight, right? When you're in fight or flight, as is the whole entire world, you are not making stomach acid. When you're running from a bear, you are not trying to digest the steak you just ate. Period. I don't care who tells you otherwise. I've got dozens of medical textbooks that would disagree with this statement right here. Dozens. Anybody want one more? Oh, yes. Oh, this is my favorite statement of Medicare. And we'll end it on this one. This is a sad way to end it. But they've lived a good, long life. With the little pterodactyl flying off into the... little pterodactyl. Is that a pterodactyl? That's a pterodactyl. It's a pterodactyl flying off into the sunset. That's great. Huh? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, it looks like a dove. It could be a dove-a-dactyl. Yeah, we'll stop right there. I don't want to go too late. But we only got through 16 of over 60 of these little nonsense shenanigans. And did anybody learn anything from these? Did any of these sound familiar? Yeah. Lies doctors tell. We've got a lot more, folks. And we're coming up with part 2 farther into quarter 2, which at the next class we'll laid out quarter 2. So that'll be April, May, and June, all the classes for April, May, and June. Giveaways. Any questions, comments, concerns before we shut this all down?
I've got a new one.
You've got a new one?
Well, and you might have it.
I probably do. But if not, I'll put it on here.
When I turned 65,
Mm-hmm.
before I was 65, I only used to have to go to the doctor once a year.
Mm-hmm. Before you were 65, you only had to go to the doctor
When I
once
turned
a year.
65,
Mhm.
I then had to start going every 3 months. And the reason was, now that you've turned 65, things are going to start happening to you.
Oh.
Every
yeah.
3 months.
Huh, perfect.
Doesn't have anything to do with I just started Medicare.
Has
And the
nothing to
doctor
do.
gets paid every 4 months
Right.
instead of once a year.
Right. So it was kind of that self-fulfilling prophecy. So it was kind of that, they put it in your head that all of a
In my
sudden.
head, that things are going to start happening.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's just, yeah. Yeah. I've got one coming up that's, it's the same, very similar, and we'll cover it probably in future installments of this little shenanigan that we've started. But it's kind of like saying, well, your diabetes isn't bad enough for a drug yet. It does 2 things. You've all heard that. Or you fill in the blank. Fill in the whatever.
You're borderline diabetic.
Yeah, you're borderline diabetic. You're pre-diabetic. You're not bad enough for a drug yet. What does that do? It sets you up. 2 things. It sets you up to do absolutely zilch. Sets you up to just sit back and take it until here comes drug time. And it absolves the doctor from having to do anything. But it sets that gear in motion in your head where you're like, I'm just buying my time till a drug.
Might as well keep on eating the way I'm eating.
Might as well
I'm
eat.
gonna
Yeah.
get it in.
Yeah, doctor said my diet's just right. Well, now you see those articles. Now you see why we're in the state that we're in. Because the doctor just looks at your stuff and goes, yeah, your diet looks fine to me. Yeah, just keep doing what you're doing. Or you're in the nursing home, or you're in the hospital, and, the nurse says to your mom or your aunt or your grandma, oh, honey, you just eat whatever you want. We got to put some weight on you. Here's some Jell-O, here's some cake. Well, yeah, but she's diabetic. Well, no, she's got to eat. She's got to put weight on. I've heard that a dozen times. So it's kind of the same thing. Same thing, only completely different. Oh yeah, and we're passing out surveys. So please give us a little feedback. Anything you learned, any big point that you're really going to take with you, or any suggestions for coming up on future classes. Some of the stuff we're going to talk about is pharmakia, CBD, the ABCs of CBD. Everybody wants to know about CBD, stuff like that. We're going to do another class on 5G and electromagnetic fields, understanding what's going on with the 5G wireless technology that's happening, rolling out, whether you like it or not. What are some other? There's a ton of stuff on the docket. And anything in the meantime, if you guys come up with some good ideas. Some of these classes were actually suggestions from people, stuff that people wanted to know more about. Yeah. Giveaways? Yes. We're about ready to sign off. Any questions, comments, concerns, thoughts? Steve, any questions? Any thoughts? Any feedback? Thoughts are dangerous. That's a thought. That is a thought. You are correct. Anything else? Anybody? Danny, thoughts, comments, concerns?
I'm going to be a big winner in that.
You're going to be a big. That's your thought. You're going to be a big winner.
That's all I think about.
That's all you can think about. He's gonna spin the wheel right off that wheel, isn't he? Yeah.
Kathy done told me I can't cheat.
She knows you. Yeah, no cheating. So, all right. In 2 weeks, on the 30th, we are doing Deadly Docs Done Dirt Sleep, March 30th at 6 p.m. Deadly Docs Done Dirt Sleep. And we're going to be, this is not going to be televised for many reasons, but this is something that you all need to know about. You should tell people about this. You should bring them. They are not going to know what this is. You probably won't know what this is, but it's very, very, very important. And you got to know. You got to know about this. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on in the world of medicine and pharmaceuticals and healthcare and insurance. And this is big, big, big. So we will sign off. Thank you very much. Everybody give Facebook a big old round of applause. We will see you in 2 weeks. Dr. Brett Spradlin, Divine Design, Natural Health.